It's a 1-1 draw. What can we take from this performance from England? They got the opening goal with Ben White, who came on as a substitute. There were some boos, some jeers in the crowd when he did come on. This was a rotated side for England.
It was.
So what can we take, being that it was a rotated side, what can we take from this performance against another World Cup team in Uruguay that clearly will be at the level of competition that they will be facing in the World Cup?
More reps, rotation I think is going to be a key phrase that's going to be used over this international break window, because when you look at the squad that was selected, especially the starting 11, I think there was a lot more of an audition for a lot of these players, especially when you look at, like, for example, Jimmy Garner's there, Marcus Rashford, who's showing an element of consistency in his play this season, Phil Foden, who's been in and out of the Man City lineup, still looking for minutes, and him coming off of a potential injury. I don't know if it was a tactical change or just maybe looking after the player. His replacement, Madueke, was one that was concerning. We're now hearing it's a knee injury, so-called the reports. So they're saying Maguire, Tomori, Livramento, Spence, Trafford. These are the players that's on the fringe of the England squad. In all due respect to them, the only one that I would say that was almost guaranteed is probably someone that's on the bench, and that's Cole Palmer, and he's still not even guaranteed to start, because I think the question marks over who's going to play in that 10 position is the biggest left unanswered statement going into this World Cup. And I don't like saying question, because at the same time, we know it's going to be one of three. It's probably going to be either Jude Bellingham, Cole Palmer, or even Phil Foden that's going to want to work into that position. But who out of the three? And I don't think there has to be an automatic selection now. I think you can be versatile in terms of with every game. Knowing that Cole Palmer probably has the best individual magic. Phil Foden knows how to link the play the best in terms of between the lines, and Jude Bellingham is just an enigma in terms of what he can do from an industrious perspective. But it's the last question mark I think Thomas Tuchel has to answer going into this. Who am I going to trust as my linchman, as my talisman to turn around and make sure I create a little bit of magic in those moments? And I don't think that question was answered today.
What needs to happen for those questions to be answered? Obviously, there's not a whole lot of friendlies left before the World Cup. What would be the biggest issue that Tuchel needs to focus on now, with the limited amount of time that they have left to get ready for the World Cup, to get this squad where he wants to be, and ultimately with the players he wants on this squad?
I think he's probably utilising this as almost a smokescreen. And when I say a smokescreen, I look at the remaining fixtures. By then it's too late. So let's almost scratch out New Zealand and Costa Rica, because you know who your squad is by that point. Right. And if you don't, then we're in bigger question marks, right? But the Japan game is a free hit, naturally, because Japan in yesteryear was a team that, you know, had some incredibly world-class players, some incredible individuals. I don't think this team is riddled with that level of etiquette. You've seen they've struggled in some of their friendlies that they've had as well. But what it is, an opportunity again, is another audition. I wouldn't necessarily play your Declan Rices, your Harry Kanes, your Jordan Pickfords, even to an extent. Probably even Mark Gahey, Ezri Konsa. I know we saw them in the stand all having a laugh and a joke, but Bukayo Saka's probably another one. Because I kind of look at it as those are almost stalemates. They're shoo-ins to start. I want to use this as an opportunity to see who's going to get those remaining positions. I think there's still a question mark over the left-back position. Yep. I think Nico O'Reilly's had a great season. I think he's had a great individual season, but Lewis Hall equally has had great spells in a really good run of form himself right now. Can he showcase something in the final games? I think Adam Wharton is another phenomenon. It's going to be probably him or Kobe Mainu that's going to go, because they're kind of similar in terms of profile. And again, what do you do there? Jared Bowen needs an opportunity to showcase what he can do, because he's come up with some big goals in this qualification campaign, and there seems to be a trust there between the manager and the player. And again, the backup position, the number 9. Dom Solanke had the majority of the game today. Didn't see a lot, saw a lot of hard work, saw a lot of tenacity, didn't see a lot in terms of, could I trust you in case Harry Kane isn't on form or we need something a little bit different? Didn't see a lot there today. DCL, friend of Morning Footy, as I'm supposed to say now.
Friend of the show.
And Dominic Calvert-Lewin, great run of form that he's been on this season. I think he's almost rejuvenated his whole career in the Leeds shirt now. But again, can you translate that from domestic form into international form? Those are probably the last little variables, but he's in great shape. Look, incredible campaign. No goals conceded. Even with the obscure decision today in terms of with the penalty, forget about all that. Today is just about reps, repetition, and who I can see fitting into a system. But you tell me, someone who's watching this team, I don't want to say from an outsider perspective, because you have a lot of links in terms of in England, especially in London. What do you see in terms of in this team, or what do you want them to showcase in that Japan fixture?
For me, it's not a question of talent with this England side. We know that the talent is there. It's that killer mentality that at way to put away games, especially games. Today's a perfect example. Granted, this is not the A squad for England today. We saw massive rotation. You had millions and millions of dollars sitting up in the stands just watching this game, who will be starting for England come World Cup time. But it's those moments where they're in control of a game, but still not being able to put games away. I think that's my biggest issue with England going into the World Cup. Having that killer mentality when winning games that you're supposed to win convincingly, early, not having to kind of fight at the end of the game to try to find the result. This match against Uruguay, Uruguay's a team that they'll face, a type of team they'll face in the World Cup that's going to hang around, fight you to the very end, and be able to maybe get a goal late on that can ruin your hopes, ruin your chances. That's what I see with England, because I know that the talent's there. I almost, you talk about from a betting perspective, they are the second betting favorites for the World Cup, ahead of France, which I still think I have an issue with. But if you have that, then you need to go out and have that killer mentality, in my opinion. I want to get your perspective, and I want you to educate the people as well on Ben White, because he comes back into the national team. There were some issues there. I want you to explain to the people what those issues were. And he was booed coming on the pitch at Wembley. And that's never a good feeling from a player's perspective, and it's not a good feeling either. If you're an impartial fan watching this, you're like, what's going on here? And he comes on and scores the goal for the English national team. What's the situation there?
Well, this is the bit that's going to be clipped for social media, and then what I wanted to start with is congratulations to Ben White for not only the mental fortitude just to navigate that situation, because it's never easy to be booed by your own fans, and especially people that's from the same country as you, which is just weird in every aspect. Any fan that booed today, you're an embarrassment. Period. I don't really understand this. You have no idea as to what's going on behind the scenes, which I'm about to detail. But then to boo him, and regardless, he's still representing his country. He's still putting his best foot forward. And more importantly, what is that going to do from a positive perspective, which is what you want, right? A positive result for the England players. So understanding the Ben White situation, you need to understand the previous regime. Of course, we had previous management that was involved. One of the assistant coaches there was Steve Holland. Well respected, has worked throughout England for a number of decades throughout the different lineages and the different age groups. And there's an app, right? So if I bring my iPad up and someone says to me, oh, look, everybody's assignments are on their individual apps. So you give you your app, you do your research, you do your one-on-ones. Now, naturally, as expected, most of these apps are tracked in terms of when you open up the app, how long you focus on each app, what the concentration is. Let's just say that there was a discrepancy in terms of what Ben White utilising the app in terms of preparation for the player that he had in terms of an opposition, and Steve Holland in terms of the minutes that were clocked. Now, Ben White's words were, very carefully, I've watched the app, I've watched the clips, you can't tell me that I haven't, because I've taken in the notes and I'm prepared for the game. Steve Holland says, well, according to my minutes, you haven't opened the app yet, so what does that tell me about your preparation? The disagreement between two individuals at that point is a disagreement between two individuals. Do you know how many players and coaching staff have fallen out before games, during games, halfway through games, after games? That's normal. But the discrepancy was around the word liar, right? And that's very key. For an individual, especially a man full of pride like Ben White, to call me a liar is one thing. His response was, if you don't believe that I've watched it, then don't play me. Very simple. That leads into an ego battle, right? Between two individuals. An individual turned around and called his bluff and turned around and said, all right, cool, we're not going to play you. Ben turned around and said, I'm going to go home, and refused to work with Steve Holland then, as he was the England coach. Now, being a coach in a system, we now obviously have a new regime. Thomas Tuchel has his own coaching staff. You can see that there's a redemption, right? The call was made. They asked Ben if he would still love to represent his country. He still would love to represent his country. He's obviously trying to put his best foot forward. Finally found himself in a good run of form, a more consistent run of games for Arsenal, and is a viable option in the right-back position, which is another question mark, because there was no Trent Alexander-Arnold in this squad, which I thought was a huge mistake, and it needs to be a mistake that's addressed before we go to that World Cup. Regardless of the form that Trent's in, Trent's a magic player and can do individual things, but Ben White is definitely a great viable option in terms of in that position, can add an element of versatility. We saw him play centre-half today, which really does showcase to what he is, can also play in midfield if you've watched him from his Leeds and his academy days. Right. So I don't really know how you leave a player of that, but I believe in letting the past be the past. You can clearly see that both teams have moved forward. Any fan that has decided they want to take that forward into this next regime, I'm going to repeat it again, it's embarrassing. Just embarrassment to yourself to boo somebody from that perspective who wants to represent the country. And it goes to my final point. What I want this England team to do between now and June is cut out the noise. The English media is historically bad for creating unnecessary pressure on the national team going into it. Let's just be honest about it. Culturally, there's a mediocrity acceptance that's regarded in England. Semi-finals are great, you know, no disrespect. Tim Henman's like the greatest player of all time. No, let's be honest about it. We need winners. We need a winning mentality. That's why they try to attack Jude, because he has that winning mentality. They love the humility of other players who might not necessarily have that winning mentality. And that's what's going to be the difference. You talked about it before. They need to be ruthless and cutthroat in this process, and that means having a mentality that believes that we are the best, a level of arrogance, and we can go up against anybody and handle our own. And hopefully, if they cut out the noise, internalising the camp, it can happen, and the famous words, "it's coming home," might actually occur. You never know. You never know.
It's true. I mean, it's interesting too, because I love it, because you need players, especially players that can be put on the pitch in several different positions. You need players like that in a World Cup. Ben White is that type of player. You can have him at fullback. You can have him at center half. And he showed today, and he gives you a goal as well on top of it. So I agree with you. I think that we need to move on past that, and fans need to realize that there are bigger things at stake here than your personal feelings against one specific player.
You laugh, though, when I told you about the English media. Do you believe in that? You've seen it historically?
I've seen it. We've been covering this sport for a very long time. You see how the English media does really it blows things up. We know here in the United States, the New York media has been historically one of the most difficult medias to deal with, and the English media is on that level, or maybe even larger than that in reality. If for American fans that don't know, it's even worse over there than it is here in New York. So it is an interesting one. I think England, they're on the right path. They need to, I agree with you. Block out the noise, use your talent, and have that killer mentality if you want to lift a trophy this summer.
It's coming home.
It's coming home. We'll see about that. About that one.